I built Nefarious with an egg.
Did you hear that, Lawrence?
Okay, well maybe not that kind of egg.
It's me. It's me.
Before we start any of this project, we're gonna need a game plan for that green dome. Spent days researching plastic domes. I even considered glass. None were large enough, and any kind of custom is gonna cost way too much money.
Just look at it all.
Finally ended up down the Easter egg route. Not perfect, but looks promising.
They're in. No!
Better get the rest started. There's a ton of pieces with Dr. Nefarious. Figured best to knock out the easy parts first. A laser cutter proved very useful. That would have taken me forever to do by hand. Forearms are pretty simple shape. The seam is held together with elastic, and that's going to be hidden by the light panel. Now we're going to have to make the screw pieces. Triangle dowel to build the outer circle. The actual screw shapes are very basic. The different screw parts were kind of my favorite details. Added divot so it will be easier to move. Cleaned up the joint where the screw meets the main piece with gap filler. Light panels are diamond shapes with LED foam and plastic, and it velcros right on top of the arm. A lot of these sections were created using pre-made templates. And some of those templates were just tweaked here and there to make what I needed. Luckily, this was true for a lot of pieces. A couple tweaks in the under chest piece went pretty smoothly. Velcro to hold the piece closed. Don't fret about that opening, the stomach panel goes right over that. The pre-cut dowels for trim made it a lot easier and cut down on so much time. For the hands, created an underglove using a stretchy black material. It's a pretty basic shape and just sew that into a glove. It's nice he only has a few fingers to worry about. The top piece is folded with a thicker foam, and then I used a thinner foam to just loop at the bottom part of the palms, keeping them from getting too bulky. Just sketched out a shape for the palm, forge it all in place, and burn the little details on the top of the hand. Similar to Rivet's mechanical arm, I used a half sphere for the shoulders. Though this time I did add an extra piece in the corner just to give it a better fit. Put on some trim, velcroed the front part of the shoulder to the underpiece, keeping it easy to move. Even the few templates we do have to make, they're basic shapes, which makes it not too bad. Big sheets of paper are going to be your best friend. The chest piece is made to split completely in half to make it easier to get on. Also, I kind of figured it might help with storage. So most of this stuff is held together with Velcro to make it come easy on, easy off. Probably my biggest tip is glue it on the right side. It helps. Let's fix that real quick. Some trim and it's looking pretty sharp. Now for the light in the center, building with some LED foam. Using plastic to protect the foam, and it's also an added benefit because it has a film that's gonna help protect it from paint. Originally, I was going to airbrush a darker orange onto the foam and then put the plastic piece back on top. So as you can see, I mindlessly glued the plastic to the pieces. It was a good plan while it lasted. We're just gonna have to paint that gradient on the plastic itself. So you're trying to create the top of the shoulder to hold the back appendages would be a lot easier than trying to create them first. These guys were a little trickier. Kind of felt like I was creating origami with butcher paper than actually making any kind of template. A couple attempts back and forth, but we actually have something here. Cut everything out of EVA foam. Quick trim. Using a bunch more Velcro for everything. Created 3 different size screw details. This ended up being one of my favorite parts of the suit. Got some slick purple boots off of Amazon and built the front of the shoe, making it detachable in case I ever want to use these shoes again. Make some diamond light panels, only this time remembering not to glue the white foam permanently. Gotta have more screw pieces. Assembled and cleaned up the seams. We're looking pretty good. Let's get this bad boy painted. Started with a base of purple, add silver details. and paint black into the deeper parts. For the trim, used a mix of metallic purple and an iridescent one. Let's peel off all that plastic covering. Egg came in, and I was very intimidated with having to permanently cut this egg.
Chicken?
So we're just gonna distract ourselves and work on the lights. Used a reddish orange color for all over the outer corner and then sprayed a yellow for the center. Just had to solder some of the LED strips, Gemma Arduino chips to program all the lights.
What's with all the neon?
The glowing ribs, that was done a little differently. Used plastic tubing and blue eel lights. I was having trouble getting the lights to go through the tubing, so I had to use yarn and some bobby pins to help feed it through. Pre-made some small rings to go along the tube. Created the parts for the back, and leaving space for the tubing to go under and the wiring. Burn in the detail and paint. Once we figured out the placement, put holes in for the wire to feed through. We need to add magnets to the outer edge of the chest. This way I can get in and out of the suit. Add magnets to the end parts that will attach to the tubing, and then attach to the front chest part. For the back, we'll want it to flex some, so attach elastic to the base. Gonna sink magnets into the side of the chest piece. Time to add those rings we made ahead of time. Little glue just to hold them in place. Use thin foam to cover the elastic. Now we can attach the end pieces. So while brainstorming how I was going to approach Nefarious's head, I had this brainiac idea. What if the stuff inside the head moved? We're gonna need a different chip than what's being used to light the LEDs. This is going more into robotics, and this is something I absolutely know nothing about. So what could go wrong? So I basically hastily researched, bought some things. My complete, shallow, uneducated understanding is these servos are going to make my stuff move. This is a tiny computer called a Raspberry Pi. In order for it to work, it's gonna need a hat, and that tells the servos to move. Yeah, I don't know either. Well, I set up the Raspberry Pi and...
Access denied. Neural safeguard activated.
No!
Nothing. Did a little troubleshooting, and unfortunately my few hours of knowledge is just not gonna cut it. And I don't want to spend any more time building my hacker skills. Definitely bummed that the pieces won't be moving. We still have to build the head either way. I'm gonna start with a base, made a template on my own head and cut that out of EVA Foam. Now this is the first time I did it, and I only used 1/2 of the template, so I got this really weird peaking high end in the center, so I cut that out so it's a little more flat on top. And now we get to cut the egg. As you can see, I measured twice and still second guessed myself, or triple guessed myself, and cut even below the original drawn lines. So now I'm just gonna glue some foam around the egg, and that's gonna help keep it in position. Okay, so even with no moving parts, we're gonna need something fun for Nefarious. Figured, why don't we make the jaw move? Originally I was gonna go with elastic, but realized this still is probably gonna make it really complicated to even get this thing on my head. So magnets to the rescue. Did use a small piece of elastic under the part of the jaw. That's gonna help me to move it as I open and close my mouth. Use a thin board for a flat surface. You will wanna slightly cut this smaller than the egg. Made the face pretty early on, but it ended up not being long enough, so we're just gonna make a quick template to extend the top part of the face. All the parts inside the head are basic. Heat an EVA circle for the satellite, and then used wire and foam clay for the rest. Cut out the gear in 2 pieces, burn some details in. And here's the front piece of the gear. One night having a casual conversation with a friend online, telling her about how my failed attempts to hack Skynet and get my stuff to move inside the head, she had a little idea. What? Scrambled to the nearest Lego store, brushed home, and boom. It works.
You hear that?
So these motor pieces are a little larger. So everything that I had built ahead of time for inside the head needs to be tweaked or remade completely. Ended up needing to use a thinner bottle for the outside piece where the bellow goes. These fidget toys were perfect size for the bellow itself. I test the egg to make sure that it's not hitting anything on the side and that everything can rotate properly. Burn in the teeth detail. Now time to cover the motor pieces and get the rest of it together. Covering parts in foam clay. Add the little antennas to the side of the face. Used a template for a belt and added a wider area for the back. Some details and ready to go. When gluing the piece in front of the gear, you're going to want to make sure that it isn't touching. Foam circles for the eyes. I did end up cutting the top part of that so that it could sit up against the brow and look a little more menacing. And I also got these little metal LED holders from Adafruit. Had some handy Amazon connectors, which saved me on some soldering. Now we can glue the eyes in. Still have to make the center light for in the dome. This is lit with a single LED. Time to paint. Attach the rest of the pieces in the head. For the hose coming out of the bellow, covered wire with foam clay and added strips of EVA foam. Glue the back down and blend it in with some black foam clay. Need to power the light. Use more connectors from Amazon. Grabbed a pipette and created a quick antenna. To make life easier, the battery pack for the eyes was ran up to the top of the head. Add some iridescent purple. Darken the teeth and around the eyes. Use black nylon to cover my eyes and my mouth. I did leave it at a length so that I could tuck it into my shirt. Now the dome needs to be green. Just added some green Wicked Createx with some neon yellow just to lighten it up, and lightly sprayed the inside. Once it's dried, we're in business. Started to dress, and it was about here when I realized I need help.
Lawrence! Lawrence?
Not Lawrence, but a wonderful assistant nonetheless. Could barely see out of this thing. Making the mouth move was a lot of fun. A suit like this is an absolute sauna, and you're definitely going to want a spotter. Due to limitations in the art room, struggled to get this in full shots, so here's some cell phone pics. Between hitting snags and, well, life getting in the way, this project actually got completed almost a year that I started the first piece. This was a much more intensive project than building Rivet from Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, so if you want to see that project, click the next video.